Mr. Rob Baxter. Really simple question, probably not a simple answer. How do you beat Saracens?
Well, I suppose the answer is simple. It's doing it that's difficult. I mean, the answer that's simple is that for us, we've got to get an awful lot of our game right. That will allow us to obviously do some positive things in the game, and obviously control Saracens as well. But as I said, that's the whole point. That's what sport's difficult about. It's not creating a plan. That is the hard thing. It is executing it. And for us, obviously, we've had some success in being very good at holding together our game plan under various pressures, whether home or away, or depending on the pressure of the scoreboard. And that's what we've got to make sure we do again. We've got a plan going into the game. We've had some success. I think our ball carrying and our ball retention and our set piece has been particularly good in attack over a large part of the season. We've got to make sure that holds itself up. And defensively, obviously, control of the gain line when Saracens are coming at you and they're getting momentum in the game is going to be very important. Obviously, being very decisive around our kind of kick run decisions, or our pass kick decisions, they're going to be very important as well, because Saracens traditionally put a lot of pressure on teams who beat themselves by being indecisive and second guessing themselves. So those are going to be very important factors for us.
Obviously, you had very contrasting build-ups. You had a week off, they had a European Cup final. What do you read into that? And given that you're here at home for the semi-final, would you peg yourselves as favourites?
Listen, the truth is they've had a tough game, haven't they? So, we have to be able to play in a way that physically and emotionally challenges them. What Saracens have shown they're very good at is recharging their batteries physically and emotionally. So it is a challenge. We've obviously got to talk about that as being a positive for ourselves. But on the flip side of that, we would love to have been the team playing in the European Cup final at the weekend, and we would have moved on and we'd have dealt with that situation as well. So there are swings and roundabouts all kinds of ways. I think feeling good about yourselves and feeling confident about the way you can play and that you can win anywhere are very important. The Saracens have that, but I would like to think we've got an element of that as well because of our run in the Premiership recently, where we've won home or away, and we've seen off all comers really. Having said that, we haven't seen off Saracens this season. They beat us here, and we drew at their place. So, it's going to be a great challenge for us. But one that we're genuinely looking forward to. We haven't worked as hard as we have to finish second to actually fight our way back into the top 6, then fight our way into the top 4, then win as many games as we did to make sure we got a home semi-final. And now turn around and go, well, we never planned on having Saracens. We've talked for a long time this season about what it would take to become champions. And one of the things that you've got to be prepared to do is either beat the team that beat Saracens or beat Saracens yourself. And I think that's just something that you've got to accept as part of the package. And if you really want to be champions, you've got to deal with that. That's what we've talked about. And when you talk about being champions, you talk about putting the game plan together and individual players who can perform at a high enough level to beat a team like Saracens, whether they're European Cup champions or not.
One final one from me. Another contrast between the sides. You've become famous, if you like, this season for scoring bonus points, scoring tries, 80-odd in 20-odd games. Sarries are famed for not conceding any. Are you going to change your tactics to take on their defence, or are you going to ask them, can you deal with our attack?
We'll do a little bit of both. Obviously, we'll focus very much on the things that work for us and the things that have been successful over the course of the season. But just as we do when we prepare against any side, I think what people need to remember is, say these last 8 games where we've had bonus point wins, we've prepared differently for each team. We've focused on our core attributes and looked to get those better and better. That's what teams do. You focus on your core attributes, and you focus on what your game plan is and what your beliefs are, and you keep trying to get better at them. But you tweak every week, and we've tweaked every week of the last 8 weeks, and it's been successful for us. And we'll have some similar tweaks this week, but that's what they'll be. They'll be tweaks that give us the best opportunity, we believe, to beat Saracens.
That's great, perfect for me. Thank you everyone else for your patience as well. Cheers.
Robert, going into the playoff phase this season compared to last season, is it slightly different? And can you take lessons from last year to this year, or are you doing things slightly differently?
It does feel slightly different, but it feels slightly different because of the attitude of the players. The players, I have a genuine feeling that the players would be genuinely disappointed not to win the Premiership this year. I can't honestly say that was the case last year. We were on an adventure. We got in the top 4 for the first time. We had the home semi-final. We played really well in it. Don't get me wrong. We played really well in it, but it was a bit of an adventure. Going to Twickenham really was an adventure for us. And I think that probably was reflected in the first half. I think we learnt a lot from that first half and what we had to do, and we improved in the second half. So, and I think we learnt a lot from not probably dealing with the final as well as we could have done. I think we've learnt a lot from that process, and I think the things we've learnt as a club and as a team and as a coaching group are, there's a lot of things you have to do day by day that make you look like possible champions. I think we've addressed a lot of those things in the second 2/3 of the season, and that makes me feel like we've got a great chance. Have we got a very tough hurdle to overcome this week? Well, of course we have. Clermont will stand for that from last week's game. At the end of the day, Clermont came here and beat us pretty well when we were struggling with the process of being in the final last year. And I think those things are some huge steps for us to overcome. But they are making us stronger as we overcome them. They're not things that we're not looking forward to testing ourselves.
It's a mental sort of step you've made in the last 2 weeks, because you were playing very well last year, but it just sounds like the players are more in tune with believing that they can.
I think so. I think the way we're looking at things now is that probably when we first got to the final and we lost the final, I think the overriding emotion of most people, and certainly was mine, was that we had a fantastic season. We'd had the best season the Exeter Chiefs have ever had, and we needed to talk about that. And I didn't feel there's anything wrong with that. But what that probably actually led to was as going into the next season on a little bit like, well, we've achieved a certain level now. If we keep things going in a similar way, and you keep rolling, then maybe you'll just roll to the next level. And it actually doesn't really work like that. I think what needs to happen is that at some stage someone needs to put a stop on that season and go, right, this next season is going to start. We lost the final. We were well down at half time. We might have only ended up losing by 8 points, but we lost the final. What am I going to do about it? What am I as an individual going to do about it? What are we as a group going to do about it? And we asked ourselves those questions. We asked ourselves those questions after Clermont came here and beat us pretty well. Because I think until then, we were hiding behind everything's okay. We were hiding behind a little bit. Well, we were in the Premiership final last year. We've gone to Wasps' first game of the season. We've only lost away by 5 points against a good side, so we're okay. We won our 3 pre-season fixtures, so we're kind of okay. Yes, we might have come up a little bit short in a couple of games, but they're against good sides. And we were kind of hiding a bit behind some facts and figures that really, what we needed to stop and say was, this doesn't feel right, doesn't feel like we're pressing on from last year. And I think once we addressed that, and we addressed it very quickly, I think that's been a very sharp upward curve for us. And the biggest credit I have to give the players was not only did they understand that themselves, that probably a lot of them had a bit of an off-season that really was them drawing breath and having a little bit of a break and going, I've just had a really good year. I do need a little bit of downtime now, and not really refiring themselves. And I think once they accepted that, and we knew we had to step things up every day in every training session, we were noticeably a better team. And I think the greatest credit I can give the players was that after we discussed this and after we said it, we went over to Ulster and lost a bit of a heartbreaker with a last-minute drop goal, and then a week later we lost another heartbreaker here against Bath in the 8th minute of injury time. But actually we didn't just look at each other and go, oh, that's it now, none of this is working. We actually knew that things had improved and things were better. And we pushed on from then, and we haven't lost in the Premiership since.
I'll ask you a strange hypothetical question. Do you think Saracens can beat England?
Yeah, quite possibly. And I don't think that's a strange question. I mean, I think it's one of those questions around international sport that kind of get asked, all the time. I think what Saracens hugely benefit is the structure that they're very comfortable with. And I think that's probably some of the big lessons we've learned off watching Saracens, that they've been in some pretty big games, some semi-finals and finals, and come up a little bit short. And although they've added and they've tweaked and they've developed their side and they've developed their players, have they ever really gone away and gone, well, we've got to get rid of half our playing squad, we've got to rip up our playing book, everything we do isn't right? They haven't done that at any stage. They've kind of added and tweaked and moulded and added and let players mature and let players develop and recruited in some key positions. They've actually kind of kept the faith with what they feel is right. And I think that's the important thing. And I think that period of time together is something that is a real luxury to international teams. And potentially that England haven't really had that yet. And I think maybe that puts it on a puts it on a different level that you could feasibly say that there could be a really great contest there.
So essentially, you are playing against a team this weekend who could be the best rugby team in Europe, full stop. Test club or country.
Well, potentially, but I mean, it is a hypothetical question because that pack's got 5 British Lions in it. If you were playing an international team and you took the internationals out of Saracens, it becomes different, doesn't it? Mario Itoja against Mario Itoja, Billy Vunipola against Billy Vunipola. If you go England against Saracens, does it become like that? It's how you judge it, isn't it?
How do you emotionally challenge a team like that? You mentioned that phrase. What do you mean by that?
Sorry, what was that?
When you say emotionally challenge, you wanted to emotionally challenge Saracens. What do you mean by that?
Well, only that, and I think most people see this in sport, that sooner or later your emotional batteries can run dry, and actually physically you can still feel in pretty good shape and you can have still kept going on, you can still be pretty fit and strong, but actually you've dug deep, emotionally quite a few times, and sometimes you try and dig deep again and it's not quite there. Now, as I said, Saracens have proved last year, they won it and they went away, they went and won a semi-final, and then won the final. So it isn't something that they've not been able to do before. But you've got to look at all the things. I mean, even if Saracens hadn't played in the European final, we'd have to try and play in a way that challenged them physically and emotionally anyway. And I think that's important for us, is to make sure that we're prepared to do that, and we're not going onto the field just to hope we can manage our way through a game, because it just doesn't happen like that. You can't just go, well, we'll just be nice and tidy for half an hour and see what happens. We probably did that a little bit, if I'm honest with you, in the final last year. And it hurt us to such a degree we probably couldn't really ever come back. We talked about it at half time, and if you looked at us after half time, we genuinely challenged them. And I think that's what we've got to be prepared to do from the first whistle, is be prepared to genuinely challenge them and not just have a look to see what kind of shape they're in.
How are your debuts as bad news, wasn't it? How's everybody else?
Most of our other injuries are there or thereabouts, which is good, which is pretty good news. And hopefully anyone of the bumped and bruised who's not available this week may well be able to feature next week if we go through. So we're in a bit of a like twilight zone where we've got nearly a lot of very good players up and running, but with no games of rugby left. So, which is a little bit frustrating, but everyone's kind of training. Training's been very competitive. We've got a few more options. We've definitely got more options in the back five of the scrum this week than we had last week. 2 weeks ago against Gloucester, which is obviously great for us. We've got a couple more options in the backs, so we're going okay. We're comfortable with what we've got. And you put a squad together and you get to this stage of the season and you go with what's available, and we're looking okay.